in yoga, we're very much working with this idea of challenging our capacity to balance. Like we'll just say on one leg. That's the one that gets most people nervous, right? On your hands or on one leg. And life requires us to stand on one leg. You know, many functional movements are a process of shifting the weight from one leg to another, getting up on a stool or climbing stairs. And as we age, our capacity to balance can be diminished to some degree for many, many factors that are involved in that. But it doesn't necessarily have to decline, and certainly not in the way that it often does. But that does mean that we have to be willing to engage with this process, which may have come very easily at a certain time in our lives, and then we actually have to work at it. So, and be okay when it's not coming well in terms of the product, and understand that we are getting benefit engaging with the process of attempting to balance even when we're wobbly. Like we're still benefiting from that. It doesn't have to look a certain way for our nervous system to be benefiting from the engagement. Well, balance is, it's a topic that I'm really enthusiastic about, and I feel like we just looked at one tiny grain of sand in the balance practice. I mean, there are so many different ways that we could have approached that, and maybe will, okay? But in the first of the practices that we worked on, where we focused on Warrior 3, was to actually, first of all, look at how standing on one leg and balancing on one leg relates to functional movement. In other words, which for many people is dysfunctional. The functional movement is dysfunctional, and we want to bring that functionality back to the movements that we do every day. And the poses do relate. I mean, we can make that connection, whether that was intended when they were created, who knows, but we can make the connection if we want. And why not? Because that's integration. And the awareness or the intelligence that's being cultivated is the point, not the pose per se. So the intention was to give the students an opportunity to experience how they're standing on one leg, and particularly when their torso is flexed over that standing leg, which changes the biomechanics quite a bit. Like what is really happening, what do they feel is happening, what would help them stabilize themselves more. And so that was a part of the experiment. And then the other piece that we were looking at was, and that again could be something maybe that we unpack or unfold in other lessons, is how in order to keep this process of engaging with balance alive and dynamic and challenging enough so that we're actually improving, not just making a certain groove deeper, but creating new neuronal pathways, new options, is to have enough that is changing so that we're actually able to design kind of balance games for ourselves, ways of practicing where we're experimenting, maybe doing what would typically be a static pose, moving it across the floor, or turning the head, which adds a vestibular and also a change of direction with the eyes, which presents another balance challenge. Looking up to the ceiling presents another balance challenge. Because if we're walking down the beach and suddenly someone calls your name, you want to be able to have your nervous system respond to that. Your head turns without falling over. So there's a world that is going to present the unpredictable to us all the time. And we can't control these different things. But what we can do is keep our system optimally functioning. And that can be playful and fun, but as a practitioner, it requires that we are willing to engage with things that are challenging. And we create those games for ourselves.